The grand ballroom of Harmony Station sparkled under thousands of crystal lights. Officers from dozens of different worlds filled the massive space, their colorful uniforms creating a rainbow of military pride. The annual Coalition Awards ceremony was the most important event in the galaxy for those who served in the Galactic Defense Coalition. Captain Lee Hanna stood near the back wall, watching the ceremony with quiet eyes. She wore her dress uniform, dark blue with silver trim, but it looked plain compared to the elaborate costumes of alien officers around her. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple knot, and her face showed no emotion as speaker after speaker praised the heroes of the past year. She did not belong here, and everyone knew it. 3 tables away, Commander Park Jin-woo sat with the other fleet officers. His chest was covered with ribbons and medals that caught the light every time he moved. He laughed loudly at jokes and slapped backs with other commanders. This was his world, full of handshakes and speeches and people who fought their wars from the safety of ship bridges. Admiral Kim So-min stepped up to the main stage. The room fell silent. Kim was the highest-ranking human in the coalition, a woman who had earned her position through 20 years of careful politics and brilliant strategy. She commanded respect from every species in the galaxy. Tonight we honor those who have shown exceptional service to our coalition, Kim began. Her voice carried easily through the room. These men and women have protected innocent lives and defended our shared values across the galaxy. The ceremony began with minor awards. Young officers received medals for bravery and service. Each one walked across the stage to shake hands with Kim and pose for pictures. The crowd clapped politely for each name. Hana's name was called early. Captain Lee Hanna, Combat Excellence Award. She walked to the stage with steady steps. No one clapped very loud. Combat Excellence was a basic award, something they gave to soldiers who did their job well but nothing special. Kim shook her hand and pinned the small silver medal to her uniform. It was her 3rd such award in 8 years of service. Congratulations, Captain, Kim said quietly. Thank you, Admiral. Hana's voice was flat and professional. She returned to her place by the wall. The ceremony continued. An hour later, they reached the important awards. The Distinguished Service Medal was the highest honor a coalition officer could receive. Only the greatest heroes earned this recognition. Commander Park Jin-woo, Kim announced, for exceptional leadership during the Kepler defense where his tactical brilliance saved 3 million civilians and destroyed an entire enemy fleet. The room erupted in applause. Jin-woo walked to the stage with a huge smile, waving to the crowd like a politician. He was tall and handsome, the kind of officer who looked good in recruitment videos. His uniform was perfect, his medals shining, his confidence absolute. Kim placed the golden medal around his neck. Cameras flashed. The crowd cheered. Jin-woo raised his hand in victory. This brings Commander Park's total commendations to 12, Kim announced, the highest count for any officer under 40 in coalition history. More applause. Jin-woo bowed and returned to his table, where other officers shook his hand and patted his shoulders. The ceremony ended an hour later with speeches about duty and honor. Then came the reception, where officers could eat expensive food and tell stories about their battles. The ballroom filled with the sound of talking and laughter. Hana moved toward the exit, but Lieutenant Yoon Dae-ho intercepted her. Leaving already? Dae-ho was young and eager, with bright eyes that still believed in the system. He had been her spotter for 2 years, and he was one of the few people who knew what she really did. I have reports to finish, Hana said. Come on, stay for one drink. You earned it. Before she could answer, a loud voice cut through the crowd, nearby. 3 awards in 8 years? Jin-woo was talking to a group of officers, his voice carrying across the room. I mean, I respect the special forces and all, but some of us actually accomplish things that matter. Several officers laughed. Hana stopped walking. The captain does important work, one of the alien officers said politely. Important? Jin-woo took a drink from his glass. She sits in the dark and shoots people from far away. I coordinate fleet movements, manage supply lines, protect entire star systems. Real leadership requires real skill. More laughter. Hana felt Daiho tense beside her. Maybe special forces should get participation trophies instead of real medals, Jinwoo continued. I mean, 3 awards? My worst year I got more recognition than that. The group around him was getting larger. Other officers were listening now, some nodding in agreement. Fleet officers always looked down on ground forces, but they usually kept their opinions private. Measly 3 awards, Jinwoo repeated, clearly, enjoying the attention. While real officers like me earn proper recognition. 12 commendations, gentlemen. That is what real service looks like. Hana turned around and walked directly toward Jinwoo's group. The crowd parted in front of her. Conversation stopped as people realized something was happening. She stopped 3 feet from Jinwoo, her dark eyes fixed on his face. He was still smiling, still confident, still completely unaware of the danger he had just created for himself. Commander Park, she said. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the noise of the room like a knife. Captain Lee. Jinwoo raised, his glass to her in a mocking toast. Congratulations on your award tonight, very impressive. The room was getting quieter. Officers were gathering around them, sensing drama. Thank you, Hana said. I could not help but overhear your comments about my service record. Just making conversation, Jinwoo said. His smile was getting wider. Numbers do not lie after all. Hana nodded slowly. She looked around the circle of officers, then back at Jinwoo. Are we counting off record wins or only the clean kills, Commander? The question hit the room like a physical blow. Conversations died completely. Officers who had been smiling suddenly looked uncomfortable. Several alien representatives shifted nervously. Jinwoo, quote, smile faltered. I am sorry. What? You mentioned numbers, Hana said. Her voice was still quiet, still calm. I want to make sure we are using the same counting system. Should I include the victories that never made it into official reports? Or just the ones where I could follow proper engagement protocols? The silence was complete now, even the servers had stopped moving. Admiral Kim was pushing through the crowd, her face serious. Jinwoo looked confused. I do not understand what you mean. Hana smiled for the first time all evening. It was not a pleasant expression. Of course you do not, Commander. You have never had to fight a war that officially does not exist. She turned and walked toward the exit, leaving Jinwoo standing in the middle of a circle of very quiet, very uncomfortable officers. Everyone in that room knew exactly what she meant, even if they could not talk about it in public. Some wars were too dirty for ceremonies and medals. Some victories were too dark for official recognition. And some soldiers fought battles that would never appear in any report, no matter how many lives they saved. The next morning, Commander Park Jinwoo sat in Admiral Kim Sung-man's office trying to explain what had happened at the reception. The office was simple and clean, with windows looking out at the stars. Kim sat behind her desk, listening without expression. She made me look like a fool in front of everyone, Jinwoo said. All that talk about off-record wins and clean kills. What does that even mean? Kim was quiet for a long moment. She had been expecting this conversation since last night. It means, Commander, that you do not understand what Captain Lee actually does for the coalition. She is Special Forces. Reconnaissance and elimination. I read her file. You read her public file, Kim corrected. There are things that do not go into public files. Jinwoo leaned forward. Then tell me what I am missing. Kim stood up and walked to the window. Some operations are too sensitive for normal reporting. Some enemies are too dangerous to acknowledge publicly. Some soldiers fight wars that most people never hear about. That is ridiculous. Every operation gets reported. Every enemy gets classified and studied. That is how military organizations work. That is how they work when the enemy follows rules. We understand, Kim said. Captain Lee deals with threats that do not follow any rules at all. Jinwoo felt frustrated. Everyone was talking in circles, giving him hints but no real answers. I want proof, he said. If she is so important, if her work is so valuable, then let me see it. Give us a joint operation. Let me observe her methods. Kim turned around. That is a dangerous request, Commander. I can handle dangerous. I coordinated the Kepler defense. I managed supply lines under enemy fire. I am not some desk officer who has never seen combat. Fleet combat is different from what Captain Lee does. Then let me learn the difference. Give us a mission together. I will prove that proper military doctrine works better than whatever unofficial methods she uses. Kim considered this carefully. She had been hoping to avoid exactly this situation, but perhaps it was time for Jinwoo to understand reality. There is a situation in the Outer Rim, she said finally. 3 mining colonies have gone silent in the past month. No distress signals, no emergency beacons, nothing. Equipment failure? Communication breakdowns? We sent investigation teams. The colonies are completely intact. Buildings undamaged, equipment working perfectly, supplies untouched. But every person is gone. Jinwoo frowned. Gone how? Gone completely. No bodies, no signs of struggle, no indication of where they went. Almost 4,000 people across 3 colonies vanished without a trace. That makes no sense. No, it does not. Which is why this mission requires someone with experience in unusual situations. Kim returned to her desk. I am assigning you joint command with Captain Lee. Your job is to investigate the disappearances and neutralize whatever threat caused them. Joint command? You wanted to prove your methods work better than hers. This is your chance. But Commander, understand this clearly. In the Outer Rim, standard procedures do not always apply. Jinwoo smiled. This was exactly what he wanted. A chance to show everyone that proper military training and established tactics could handle any situation. When do we leave? Captain Lee is already preparing. Report to Docking Bay 7 in 2 hours. An hour later, Captain Lee Hana was checking equipment in the armory when Lieutenant Yoon Dae-ho found her. I heard about the joint mission, he said. Are you sure this is wise? I did not choose this, Hana replied. She was examining ammunition. That looked different from standard coalition rounds. The bullets were longer and had strange markings along the sides. What do you think really happened to those colonies? Hana looked up from her work. I think Commander Park is about to learn why some operations do not make it into official reports. You know what we are dealing with. I have suspicions. Energy readings from the sites match patterns I have seen before. She loaded the special ammunition into several magazines. Patterns that officially do not exist. Dae-ho watched her pack gear he had never seen in any supply catalog. Modified sensors, unusual weapons, equipment that looked like it had been built in someone's workshop rather than a military factory. How long have you been preparing for this kind of threat? 5 years, Hana said. Ever since the first incident, on Kepler Station. Kepler Station, that was listed as a reactor accident. It was listed as many things, none of them were true. Commander Park Jinwoo arrived at the docking bay exactly on time, followed by 6 fleet officers and a full complement of standard coalition Marines. He wore his dress uniform and carried himself with the confidence of someone who had never failed. At anything, Hana was waiting with Dae-ho and 2 other soldiers Jinwoo did not recognize. Their uniforms were plain and practical. Their equipment looked worn and used. Commander Park, Hana said. Ready for departure? My team is prepared for any situation, Jinwoo replied. He gestured to his Marines. Full tactical squad, standard. Weapon loadouts, complete sensor packages. Everything by the book. Good. You will need every advantage you can get. They boarded the transport ship Defender, a fast military vessel designed for quick deployment to trouble zones. Jinwoo immediately took command of the bridge, issuing orders and reviewing tactical data with his officers. Hana went to the cargo hold and began checking her gear one more time. During the 3-day journey to the Outer Rim, Jinwoo studied every report about the missing colonies. He created detailed plans for systematic searches, established communication protocols, and prepared contingency procedures for every situation he could imagine. Hana spent the time in the ship's workshop, modifying equipment and preparing tools that were not in any coalition manual. On the 2nd day, Jinwoo found her welding strange attachments to sensor probes. "What are you doing to that equipment?" "Making it useful," she replied without looking up. "That is coalition property. You cannot just modify it without authorization. Would you prefer equipment that works, or equipment that follows regulations?" "I prefer equipment that has been properly tested and approved." Hana turned off the welder and looked at him. "Commander, in about 18 hours you are going to see things that were never tested in any coalition laboratory, things that no regulation anticipated. When that happens, you can choose between following the book or staying alive. What exactly are you expecting to find? Something that should not exist. Something that hunts people for reasons we do not understand. Something that leaves no evidence because it does not belong in our reality." Jinwoo stared at her. "That is impossible." "Yes," Hana agreed. "It is completely impossible, which is why it has been so successful." She returned to her welding and Jinwoo walked away feeling more confused than ever. The next morning they arrived at the first colony. The mining colony of New Haven looked perfect from orbit. Streets were clean, buildings intact, machinery still running. But no people moved anywhere in the settlement of 2,000 souls. Commander Park Jinwoo stood on the bridge studying sensor readings. Everything appeared normal except for one impossible fact: complete silence from all communication systems. "Take us down to the landing pad," he ordered. "Standard approach pattern." Captain Lee Hana watched from the back of the bridge. She had her own readings from modified sensors, and they told a very different story. Energy patterns flickered around. The colony like invisible fire. Something was very wrong here. The transport landed smoothly. Jinwoo assembled his Marines in the cargo bay, checking weapons and communication gear. "Standard sweep pattern," he announced. "Teams of 4, maintain. Visual contact report every 15 minutes. We are looking for signs of struggle, evidence of evacuation, anything that explains where these people went." His Marines nodded and prepared to deploy. They were good soldiers, well-trained and disciplined. Hana gathered her small team separately. Lieutenant Daeho and 2 specialists named Kim Hyun and Lee Minho. Their equipment looked different from standard coalition gear. "Stay close," she told them quietly. "Do not touch anything unusual. Do not investigate sounds by yourselves. If something feels wrong, trust that feeling." "What are we really dealing with here?" asked Kim Hyun. "Something that should not exist in our dimension," Hana replied. "Something that phases through matter and hunts for pleasure." The teams deployed into the empty colony. Jinwoo's Marines spread out in precise formation, methodically searching buildings and recording everything they found. Their boots echoed on empty streets as they called out reports. House 7 clear, no signs of disturbance. Market district empty, food still fresh in storage. School building vacant, children's books still on desks. Hana's team moved differently. They stayed in shadows, watched corners carefully, and stopped frequently to listen. Daeho carried sensors that hummed quietly as they detected energy patterns, invisible to normal equipment. They found the first clue in the town square. Scorch marks on the ground formed strange patterns, like someone had drawn symbols with fire. The marks were still warm despite the colony being empty for weeks. "Energy. Discharge," Daeho reported quietly into his communicator. "Pattern suggests forced dimensional interface." Hana knelt beside the marks. They were familiar, unfortunately familiar. "How many colonies have you seen like this?" asked Lee Minho. 17, Hana answered. "This is number 18. 18? But the reports only mentioned 3 missing colonies. The reports only mentioned the ones we could not save in time." Across town, Jinwoo's Marines were discovering that the colony's computer systems were still running. Security cameras showed normal activity up until exactly 0347 hours 3 weeks ago. Then every person in the colony simply walked outside and disappeared. "No signs of coercion," reported Sergeant Park Kyung. "They just left their homes and vanished." Jinwoo studied the footage on a portable screen. People walked calmly from their houses, forming groups in the streets, then moving toward the town center. The camera showed them gathering in the square, then nothing. The feed went blank for exactly 17 seconds, and when it resumed, the square was empty. Something interfered with the recording, he muttered. Dot. That was when the attack came. Dot. The gear. Air above the square shimmered like heat waves. Something invisible moved through the space where Jinwoo's Marines were standing. Suddenly, Sergeant Park screamed and flew backward through a stone wall. Contact, shouted another Marine. Unknown hostiles. Weapons fire erupted across the square. Muzzle flashes lit up the afternoon, but the bullets passed through empty air. Whatever was attacking them could not be seen or hit by conventional weapons. Another Marine was lifted off his feet and thrown into a building. His armor cracked like an egg. Blood splattered across white concrete walls. Fall back, Jinwoo ordered. Establish defensive positions. His remaining Marines tried to retreat, but the invisible attackers moved faster than humans could run. One by one, his soldiers were being torn apart by enemies they could not see or fight. Then Hana appeared. She came from the shadows, like death itself, moving with liquid grace between the panicking Marines. In her hands was a rifle that hummed with strange energy. She fired 3 quick shots, and 3 separate screams echoed from empty air. Bodies materialized where nothing had been moments before. The creatures were nightmares made real, 8 feet tall, covered in gray skin that shifted and flowed like water. Their faces had too many teeth and eyes that burned with cold fire. Claws like curved daggers dripped with human blood. Phase shifters, Hana said calmly. Interdimensional predators. More creatures shimmered into visibility around the square, at least a dozen of them, circling the humans like wolves around sheep. Jinwoo stared in shock. His weapon was useless. His training meant nothing. These things existed outside everything he understood about warfare. How? He whispered. Later, Hana replied. She tossed him a magazine of her special ammunition. Load this. Aim for center mass. Do not hesitate. The creatures attacked again. This time, Hana's team was ready. Daiho fired covering shots while Kim Hyun and Lee Minho flanked the attackers. Their weapons all used the same modified ammunition, rounds that could interact with phased matter. The battle was vicious but brief. Hana moved through the combat zone like a dancer, each shot perfectly placed. Her team worked together with practiced efficiency, covering angles and coordinating fire. When the last creature fell, 7 bodies lay scattered around the square. Strange blood pooled on concrete, already beginning to evaporate. Jinwoo looked around at his surviving Marines. Half his team was wounded or dead. His perfect mission had become a nightmare in less than 10 minutes. You have fought these things before, he said to Hana. Many times. Why was I never told they existed? Hana reloaded her rifle and scanned the area for more threats. Because the first time I reported them, Command decided I was suffering from combat stress. The second time, they suggested psychological evaluation. The third time, they ordered me to stop filing false reports. So, you stopped reporting. I stopped asking for permission. That night, they made camp in the colony's command center. Jinwoo's wounded Marines received medical treatment while his remaining soldiers stood guard with weapons they now knew were useless. Commander Park sat across from Captain Lee in the empty cafeteria. Between them lay one of the modified ammunition magazines and a small device that looked like a sensor array built from spare parts. Explain this to me, Jinwoo said quietly. All of it. Hana poured coffee from a thermal container. The hot liquid was one of the few comforts available in this haunted place. 5 years ago, I was stationed on Kepler Station, she began. Routine security assignment. 3,000 people living and working in deep space research. The reactor. Accident. There was no reactor accident. Hana sipped her coffee. One night, people started disappearing. First a few scientists working late shifts, then entire families from residential sectors. No signs of struggle. No emergency calls, no evidence at all. Jinwoo listened without interrupting. I found the first body 3 days later, torn apart in ways that made no sense. Claw marks from something that had never been seen before. I reported it immediately. What happened? Command sent investigators. By the time they arrived, the body had dissolved into nothing. No DNA, no tissue samples, no proof. They decided I was seeing things. Hannah set down her cup and leaned forward. More people disappeared. I started patrolling alone, looking for patterns. That is when I first encountered them. The phase shifters hunt in packs, usually at night. They can move through solid matter like it does not exist. Normal weapons pass right through them. How did you learn to fight them? Trial and error. Mostly error. She touched a scar on her neck. They nearly killed me 6 times before I figured out their weakness. Which is, they exist partially in our dimension and partially in another. When they phase through matter, they become vulnerable to certain energy frequencies. I learned to modify ammunition to exploit that vulnerability. Jinwoo picked up one of the special bullets. It was heavier than normal rounds and hummed slightly when he held it. Why did Command not believe your reports? Because phase shifters are impossible according to coalition science. Our physicists say interdimensional travel cannot exist. Our biologists say such creatures could not evolve. Our military doctrine has no procedures for fighting enemies that ignore the laws of physics. So they ignored the problem. They classified my reports as combat stress and ordered psychological evaluation. When I refused to stop investigating, they threatened disciplinary action. Hannah stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the empty colony streets looked peaceful in the moonlight. That is when I decided to handle the problem myself. You went, Kern? I went effective. Over the next 5 years, I tracked down every phase shifter incursion I could find. Sometimes I arrived in time to save people. Sometimes I only arrived in time to clean up the bodies. She turned back to face him. 17 colonies, Commander. 17 separate attacks that never made it into coalition records because I stopped them before they became official incidents. Jinwoo stared at her. You have been fighting a private war. I have been doing my job, protecting innocent people from threats that want to kill them. Without authorization, without support, without backup. With Lieutenant Daeho and a few other soldiers who were willing to see the truth, we developed tactics, improved weapons, created early warning systems. Lieutenant Daeho entered the cafeteria carrying a tablet computer. Captain, we have a problem, he said. The sensor network is picking up massive energy buildup 12 kilometers north of here. Hannah looked at the readings. How massive? Bigger than anything we have seen before. At least 50 individual signatures. Jinwoo felt his stomach drop. 50 of those things. Worse, Hannah replied. This reads like a staging ground. They are not just hunting anymore. They are preparing for something much larger. She started gathering her equipment. Where are you going? To do reconnaissance, we need to understand what they are planning. That is suicide. You said yourself they nearly killed you 6 times. That was when I was learning. Now I know how to fight them. Jinwoo stood up. I am coming with you. No. Your Marines need medical evacuation. Take them back to the ship and call for reinforcements. What reinforcements? You just told me Command does not believe these things exist. Hannah paused in her packing. He had a point. Then call Admiral Kim. Tell her we need every ship she can send. Tell her the phase shifters have stopped hunting individual colonies and started preparing for war. What kind of war? The kind where they try to eliminate humanity completely. An hour later, they were moving through dark forest toward the energy readings. Hannah led the way with Daeho close behind. Jinwoo followed with Kim Hyun and Lee Minho, trying to move as quietly as the Special Forces soldiers. The trees around them were wrong somehow. Bark looked like it was melting. Leaves shimmered with colors that hurt to look at. The air itself felt thick and strange. Dimensional bleed, Daeho whispered. Their world is starting to overlap with ours. They reached the edge of a clearing and saw something that changed everything. In the center of the open space stood a structure that could not exist. It was built from materials that shifted between solid and liquid, walls that bent in directions the human eye could not follow. Energy crackled around it like purple lightning dot around the structure. Hundreds of phase shifters moved in organized formations. They were not random predators anymore, they were an army. "How long have they been building this?" Jinwoo whispered. "Months," Hana replied. "Maybe years. They have been using the isolated colonies to gather intelligence and test our defenses." Intelligence for what? An invasion. Full-scale assault on human space. Through her scope, Hana could see phase shifters operating strange machinery inside the structure. They were opening doorways between dimensions, creating permanent gates for their armies to use. "We have to stop this," Jinwoo said. "With what? 5 soldiers and modified ammunition? You stopped them before. I stopped small hunting packs. This is different. This is their entire civilization preparing for war." Jinwoo watched the impossible army organizing itself for humanity's destruction. Everything he had believed about proper military procedure seemed insignificant compared to this threat. "Then we do what humans do best," he said quietly. "Which is? We improvise." Back at the colony, Jinwoo tried to contact Admiral Kim through the ship's communication system. The transmission was filled with static and dimensional interference from the phase shifter base. "Admiral, we have a massive threat situation. Request immediate reinforcement." Kim's voice crackled through the speakers. "Define massive, Commander." "Hundreds of hostile entities. Unknown technology. They are preparing for large-scale assault on human colonies." Long pause. "Commander, are you certain about these numbers?" Jinwoo looked at Hana, who was modifying more equipment in the corner. "Admiral, Captain Lee has been tracking these threats for 5 years. Her intelligence is accurate. Put Captain Lee on the channel." Hana approached the communication console. "Admiral." "Captain, I need a full situation report. Everything you know about these phase shifters." For the next hour, Hana explained the entire history. The hunting patterns, the dimensional technology, the gradual escalation from random attacks to organized invasion. She described 17 successful interventions and the growing evidence of coordinated planning. When she finished, Kim was quiet for a long time. "Captain, why did you never inform me directly about this threat?" "Because the first time I tried official channels, I was ordered to undergo psychological evaluation. I decided results were more important than reports. And now they are. Past the point where small unit tactics can stop them. We need fleet intervention, dimensional warfare specialists, and weapons designed for interdimensional combat." "How long do we have?" Hana consulted her readings. "The dimensional gateway will be fully operational in 18 hours. After that, they can transport unlimited numbers of troops directly into human space." "Can you delay their timeline?" "Possibly, but it would require tactics that violate every coalition engagement protocol." Jinwoo interrupted. "Admiral, Captain, Lee's unconventional methods are the only thing that has worked against these enemies. I recommend giving her complete operational authority." Kim's voice showed surprise. "Commander, yesterday you were criticizing her service record." "Yesterday I did not understand what service record actually meant. Today I watched her save my life and the lives of my Marines using methods that no military academy teaches." "Captain, Lee, what do you need?" "Complete tactical freedom and 2 volunteers willing to attempt something that has never been tried before." "Explain." "I am going to destabilize their dimensional gateway from inside their own base. It will require entering their parallel dimension and sabotaging their technology using principles we do not fully understand." "That sounds like suicide." "It sounds like the only option that might work." Kim made her decision. "You have full authorization, Captain. Commander Park, you will provide whatever support she requires." "Understood, Admiral." The transmission ended. Hana immediately began preparing equipment that looked even more unusual than her previous modifications. She worked with focused intensity, building devices from spare parts and coalition technology. "What exactly are we going to do?" Jinwoo asked. We are going to enter their dimension through the dimensional bleed around their base. Once inside, we will plant charges designed to collapse their gateway structure. And then we pray we can get back to our own dimension before the explosion tears holes in reality. Lieutenant Daeho approached with additional equipment. Captain, I have modified 3-dimensional suits using phase shifter technology from the creatures we killed. The suits looked like normal coalition armor, but they hummed with strange energy and seemed to shift slightly even when motionless. These will let us exist partially in their dimension, Hana explained. Without them, we would be torn apart by dimensional forces. How do you know they will work? I do not. This is the first time anyone has attempted dimensional infiltration. Jinwoo put on one of the suits. It felt wrong somehow, like wearing clothing made from liquid electricity. Why are you trusting me with this? He asked. Yesterday you thought I was an arrogant fool. Yesterday you were an arrogant fool, Hana replied. Today you are an arrogant fool who is willing to learn. That makes you useful. Kim Hyun and Lee Minho volunteered for the mission, despite understanding the risks. They were Special Forces soldiers who had followed Hana through 17 impossible battles. One more seemed reasonable. As night fell, they moved back toward the phase shifter base. The dimensional bleed was stronger now, making the forest around them shift and flow like a living thing. Reality became uncertain. Stay close, Hana warned. In dimensional overlap zones, it is possible to become lost between realities. They reached the edge of the clearing where the impossible structure continued growing larger. The phase shifters had increased their numbers. At least 300 creatures moved in coordinated formations. The gateway is almost complete, Daeho reported. Energy readings show it could activate at any moment. Hana activated her dimensional suit. The world around her shifted, colors becoming deeper and distances changing unpredictably. She could see the phase shifter base as it truly existed, a massive fortress built from crystallized dimensional energy. Follow my lead, she said. Do exactly what I do. One wrong step in dimensional space can trap you forever. They entered the overlap zone. The sensation was indescribable. Jinwoo felt like he was falling and floating simultaneously. His body existed in 2 places at once, creating a disorienting double vision effect around them. The phase shifters became visible as they truly were. Not just predatory creatures, but members of an advanced civilization that had mastered dimensional manipulation. Their technology was far beyond human understanding. How do we fight something this advanced? Jinwoo whispered. We do not fight them, Hana replied. We break their toys. She led them deeper into the base, moving between realities like a ghost. The phase shifters could not detect them while they remained partially phased, but maintaining the dimensional suits required enormous concentration. They reached the central gateway chamber, a vast space filled with machinery that bent the laws of physics. Energy flowed in patterns that hurt to look at directly. There, Hana pointed to a crystalline structure at the center. The dimensional anchor. Destroy that, and their entire gateway network collapses. How? Carefully. She began placing charges around the anchor point. The explosives were her own design, modified to destabilize dimensional fields rather than cause physical damage. This will create a cascade failure, she explained while working. The explosion will spread through their dimensional network and collapse all their gateways simultaneously. Including our way home? Including our way home. Jinwoo watched phase shifters moving around them, unaware of the human infiltrators preparing to destroy their invasion plans. How many human lives will this save? He asked. All of them, Hana replied. If this invasion succeeds, humanity becomes extinct within a year. Then it is worth the risk. She finished placing the charges and activated the timer. They had 60 seconds to reach minimum safe distance. Run, she said. They ran through impossible corridors while reality shifted around them. The dimensional suits began failing under the stress, making it harder to maintain phase coherence. 30 seconds remaining. They burst out of the base structure as phase shifters finally detected their presence. Alien screams filled the air as hundreds of creatures converged on their position. 10 seconds. Down! Hana shouted. The explosion was unlike anything in human experience. Light folded in on itself, space twisted into impossible shapes, and the phase shifter base simply ceased to exist. The dimensional shockwave spread outward, collapsing gateway after gateway throughout their network. In seconds, an invasion force that had taken years to assemble was cut off from human space completely. When the light faded, they found themselves back in normal reality. The clearing was empty except for strange scorch marks that would fade within hours. Is it over? Jinwoo asked. This invasion is over, Hana replied. But there will be others. There are always others. Then we will stop them too. Hana looked at him with something approaching respect. Yes, Commander, we will. 3 weeks later, Commander Park Jinwoo stood in Admiral Kim So-man's office again. This time, Captain Lee Hana stood beside him. Both officers looked tired, but satisfied. Your report makes interesting reading, Kim said. She held a thick folder, containing detailed accounts of the phase shifter threat. Interdimensional predators, parallel invasion forces, gateway technology that should not exist. Every word is accurate, Jinwoo replied. I witnessed it personally. And you believe Captain Lee's methods were appropriate for the situation? Her methods were the only thing that worked. Standard coalition tactics would have resulted in total failure and massive human casualties. Kim turned to Hana. Captain, you have been operating outside official channels for 5 years. You have modified coalition equipment without authorization. You have engaged unknown enemies without proper backup or support. Yes, Admiral. You have also prevented the extinction of human civilization. Hana said nothing. Kim opened another folder. I have been reviewing historical reports from the past 5 years. 17 colonies that experienced unusual incidents. Reactor accidents, equipment failures, mass evacuations due to contamination. All of them occurred in locations where you were conducting unauthorized operations. The official explanations were necessary to prevent panic, Hana said, and to protect your ability to continue operating in secret. Yes. Kim leaned back in her chair. Commander Park has recommended you for the Coalition's highest honor, the Medal of Ultimate Sacrifice. He believes your actions saved every human life in known space. I decline the recommendation. Both Kim and Jinwoo looked surprised. Captain, this medal recognizes extraordinary heroism in the face of impossible odds. Your actions qualify completely. My actions were necessary, not heroic. I did what needed to be done to protect people. That does not require medals or ceremonies. Then what do you want? Hana stepped forward. I want official recognition of the phase shifter threat. I want resources to train other operatives in dimensional combat techniques. I want early warning systems installed on every frontier colony. You want to turn your private war into an official program. I want to make sure humanity is prepared for the next invasion, because there will be a next invasion, Admiral. Lee, phase shifters are not the only interdimensional species that views humans as prey. Kim made notes on her tablet. What would you need to establish such a program? 50 volunteers willing to undergo unconventional training. Access to research facilities for developing dimensional technology. Authority to investigate unusual incidents without bureaucratic interference. And command structure? Joint command between special operations and fleet personnel. People like Commander Park who can adapt their thinking when necessary. Jinwoo looked surprised. You want me involved? You learned quickly when faced with impossible situations. That ability is rare and valuable. Kim considered the proposal carefully. This would require significant resources and political support. Many coalition members will question spending money on threats they cannot see or understand. Then show them the evidence, Hana replied. Show them what happened to those 17 colonies. Show them what nearly happened to every human settlement in the galaxy. The evidence is classified. Then declassify it. People have a right to know what is hunting them. Kim made her decision. I will present your proposal to the Coalition Council. In the meantime, you will begin training a preliminary team using volunteers from Special Operations. Understood. One more thing, Captain. Your official service record shows 3 awards in 8 years. For the historical record, what is your actual count of successful operations? Hana was quiet for a long moment. Successful operations do not have numbers, Admiral. They have names. Explain. New Haven Colony, population 2,000. Kepler, Research Station, population 3,000. Mining Platform 7, population 800. Farming Settlement Beta, population 1,500. She continued listing names and numbers. Agricultural World Demeter, population 40,000. Trade Hub Epsilon, population 12,000. Exploration Base Gamma, population 600. The list went on. Colony after colony, settlement after settlement, thousands and thousands of human lives. That is not a count of operations, Kim realized. That is a count of people. 18,473 people are alive today because someone was willing to fight monsters in the dark without recognition or reward. And the ones you could not save? I remember their names too. All of them. Jinwoo finally understood what Hana had meant at the awards ceremony. Clean kills were missions where she could follow standard procedures and write normal reports. Off-record wins were the times she had to break every rule to save lives that would otherwise be lost. For the record, Kim said, how many phase shifter encounters have you survived? 67 direct engagements, 43 reconnaissance missions, 22 rescue operations, 14 base infiltrations including yesterday. And casualties among your team? Lieutenant Daeho has been with me for 3 years without major injury. Kim Hyun and Lee Minho joined 18 months ago. We have lost 7 soldiers to phase shifter attacks over the past 5 years. Kim wrote down the numbers. 7 human deaths to prevent the extinction of the entire species. The mathematics were brutal but clear. Captain, one final question. Do you regret operating outside official channels for so long? Hana thought about all the nights spent hunting invisible predators. All the battles fought without backup or support. All the victories that would never be recorded in any official history. I regret that it was necessary, she said finally, but I do not regret doing it. Kim nodded. Commander Park, do you have anything to add to this report? Just one thing, Admiral. Yesterday, Captain Lee asked me whether we were counting off record wins or only clean kills. Now I know the answer. Which is, we count the people who are still alive because someone was willing to do what others could not or would not do. Everything else is just paperwork. Kim closed the folders and stood up. Then let us make sure there are more people to count in the future. Captain Lee, you have authorization to begin recruiting for the Dimensional Threat Response Division. Commander Park, you will serve as her liaison to fleet operations. Yes, Admiral. And Captain? The next time impossible enemies threaten human lives, you will not face them alone. 3 months later, the Dimensional Threat Response Division had 50 trained operatives and early warning systems on 100 colonies. Phase shifter incursions dropped to 0, as the alien predators learned that humans were no longer easy prey. In the official records, Captain Lee Hana was credited with founding the division and developing new defensive technologies. Her award count remained at 3. In the unofficial records kept by those who knew the truth, her count was different. It was measured in living children who played safely on distant worlds, in families who slept peacefully without knowing what hunted in the dark. In colonies that existed because someone had been willing to fight wars that officially never happened. Some victories were too important for medals. Some heroes were too necessary for fame. And some counts were too sacred to be written in any official report. Commander Park Jinwoo learned to stop asking about numbers. Instead, he helped train the next generation of soldiers who would face impossible enemies with unconventional methods. Because in the end, the only count that mattered was how many people went home safely to the ones they loved.